A scramble to import eggs worth $6 million has become a political controversy that shows no sign of abating.
What do we want it?
Climate activists rally in New York to end fossil fuels. Chinese spouses on Taiwan's Kinmen Islands struggled during the COVID pandemic. We hear their stories. Plus, a remastered documentary pays tribute to the sacrifices of Taiwan's female factory workers. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Ian Kavat. Taiwan's agricultural minister has promised to clear up what he's called slander and misinformation over a massive government project to import millions of eggs. Rick Lowett reports on the issue that continues to stir up controversy in Taiwan politics.
Millions of chicken eggs imported from Brazil are causing a headache for Taiwan's government and distrust among shoppers on the streets of Taipei. This after some of them were labelled with incorrect expiry dates.
我当然担心啊，进口鸡蛋它的保存期限到底是如何，我们不知道，对不对？然后就造成很担心，吃下去会不会生病啊？
对，现在要吃比较少。本来我早上都有水煮蛋，我们家有3个人，但是我都煮3个水煮蛋。 那像今天我都不敢煮了。
At the centre of the scandal, a $6 million government program to ship in eggs from Brazil and 6 other countries to meet egg demand after domestic production slowed. Millions expired and were destroyed, but millions more were washed and could have been mislabelled. It's prompted local governments to take action in a bid to reassure their citizens.
虽然中央到现在没有提供相关的资料，但我们就是主动追、主动查，就算亲自上门也要查。
Taiwan's embattled agriculture minister has defended the import plan and blamed the commotion on misinformation.
鸡蛋的专案进口政策是正确的，效益是高于成本的。许多的不实的攻击，造成农业部同仁的这一个压力，甚至造成了整个这样的攻击，造成了整个 社会的纷扰，我愿意为这样的纷扰来道歉。好，谢谢。
Local media reports that the agriculture minister wanted to step down, but has been told to stay on to resolve the crisis. Food safety has long been on the list of top concerns for people in Taiwan, but it's election season here. In just a few months, the country will select its new president, and the issue over imported eggs has become incredibly political. Taiwan's opposition candidates have seized the opportunity to go after Lai Ching-te, the presidential hopeful for the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and current vice president. Polls show the frontrunner has taken a battering in the wake of this egg scandal.
Because it dovetails these different narratives in Taiwanese politics. And one is, again, these frequent allegations regarding corruption and sensitivity to that. But I think the other aspect, too, is that there's very strong sensitivity to increases in prices. So that in the past has led to panic buying, for example, from toilet paper to instant noodles and so forth.
There are many issues facing Taiwan's next president, from how to handle the rising threat from neighbouring China to confronting the country's rapidly ageing population. But here on the streets of the capital Taipei, it's issues like basic amenities and the cost of living that continue to stir up discussion ahead of those all-important polls. Devin Tai and Rick Lowett for TaiwanPlus.
The country is facing its worst dengue fever outbreak since 2015. Experts say if this year's wave follows the same pattern as the last, case numbers may spike in the coming weeks. As John Van Trieste reports, officials in the worst affected city are getting ready.
Here in the city of Tainan, the sound of workers spraying for mosquitoes has become a part of life. The southern city has many marshy areas, making it susceptible to the mosquito-borne disease dengue fever. And now it's at the epicenter of Taiwan's worst outbreak since the last big wave in 2015. There have been over 7,000 confirmed dengue infections in the city. And doctors say that if the 2015 outbreak is a guide, new cases could soon abruptly rise.
历史的痕迹是11月中才会到最高峰，但是在104年的时候，我们是到了9月中就回涨，就是这时候。所以我觉得这2个礼拜最重要的。
One reason for this is the upcoming Mid-Autumn Festival, which this year falls on September 29th. This is a big time for barbecues and outdoor gatherings, which has officials concerned.
连假会有很多群聚烤肉，以及就是可能南来北往会有出游的情形哈，我们都担心说会不会容易让这个民众到户外，增加被这个蚊子叮咬的这个机会哈。
On top of this, the city is strapped for cash to do the work needed to keep things under control, spraying and other tasks like cleaning stagnant water where mosquitoes lay eggs. As such, the central government in Taipei is having to step in.
将近1000万的一个经费的一个缺口，希望环境部可以给予帮助。那这一点我也在这边跟各位报告环境部会给予全力的一个支援。
And the Centers for Disease Control has put together a team of over 20 to handle mosquito spraying and other work in the worst affected districts. The team will keep working for a month. The hope is that this work, along with recent dry weather, will be enough to avoid a repeat of 2015. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Tens of thousands of people marched in New York City to demand an end to fossil fuels. The march was part of global climate protests taking place ahead of the United Nations General Assembly. Activists called on US President Joe Biden and other world leaders to end the burning of fossil fuels, which is a leading cause of the climate crisis. Several Taiwanese took part in the New York rally. Reporter Sally Jensen spoke to one of them, Taiwan Climate Action Network research assistant Benjamin Yang.
What was the atmosphere like at the rally against fossil fuels?
I think it was really impressive. I think there was a very wide diversity of groups and organizations represented. I think as diverse as maybe their definitions of what climate justice means, I think they were all kind of united in the message of we need to end fossil fuels now. Like basically the idea is to show all of the world leaders and representatives that are going to be here for the UN Climate Ambition Summit to show them that fossil fuel phase out is something that their constituents really, really care about.
So as a Taiwanese person, what was the point of you going to this rally, especially when Taiwan is not a part of the UN and can't be part of climate negotiations?
As Taiwanese people, the UN and advocacy spaces around that aren't really something that we're really used to. Just coming from Taiwan and reflecting on my experiences in Taiwan, I think it was also very heartening to see how a lot of the struggles that grassroots organizations are facing around the world are pretty similar. And there's definitely a lot of space for civil society organizations in Taiwan to connect and build solidarity with all these other organizations around the world.
So do you think as civil society, your presence at this rally kind of helps or hinders Taiwan's role internationally?
The slogan, Taiwan can help, doesn't really just apply to the government. It applies to us as a Taiwanese society as a whole. A lot of our experience, grassroots organization and advocacy, engaging with different stakeholders and engaging with government, I think these are very, especially in the climate and environmental space, I think we have a lot of experience and insights that can be very helpful.
Taiwan is still one of Asia's largest per capita emitters. So if it really wants to help, what can it do to reduce its impact on the planet?
People write PhD theses on that question. But first of all, domestically, we really have to kind of scale up our climate ambition and really take this transition to a net zero society seriously, not just another business opportunity. I think internationally, we also have to look at the impact of Taiwanese corporations on frontline environmental justice communities, marginalized communities abroad. If Taiwanese companies that bear the name of Taiwan, that represent Taiwan, keep on bringing these negative impacts to poorer, more marginalized communities around the world, then it will hinder our image and how we're being perceived internationally.
That was Sally Jensen talking to Benjamin Yang with the Taiwan Climate Action Network. Taiwan and China have had a long and complicated history. Most of Taiwan's residents can trace their roots back across the strait at some point in time. But one group has stronger ties than most: Chinese spouses living in Taiwan. And on the islands of Kinmen, located just kilometers from China, they've been forced to adjust as the pandemic and politics have changed cross-strait ties. Ed Moon has this report from Kinmen.
Hundreds of miles away from Taipei, and just a few kilometers across the water from China, Chin Jiayin gets to work on a busy lunch service. Her restaurant lies on the very edge of Taiwanese territory, on one of the Kinmen Islands. Here, she cooks up food from her hometown, Chongqing, one of the largest cities in China. Chin is one of the over 300,000 Chinese spouses of Taiwanese citizens who live in Taiwan.
第一次来的时候觉得很新鲜，但住久了就觉得不习惯。当时啊，现在就习惯了。
There are 2,500 Chinese spouses like Chin living in Kinmen alone, with nearly 1 in every 15 households on the islands featuring a marriage between a Chinese and Taiwanese partner. Many of them started businesses catering to the growing market of tourists from both Taiwan and China, eager to visit what was once a Cold War front line, but now a rare source of warmer cross-strait ties.
The COVID-19 pandemic saw millions of people all across the world separated from their families. But the pain of separation was particularly acute here on the Taiwanese-controlled islands of Kinmen. Chinese spouses who live here saw the regular ferry service to China cut off, their homeland visible just across the water.
所以你为什么选择就是留下来在小金门这边？
儿子，卫生纸。儿子，等我一下。
Her lifeline came from an unexpected source: Taiwanese soldiers, hundreds of whom are still posted to the islands. Chin went from being booked out every day to struggling to make ends meet.
连我们可能金门的人都很少出去吃饭啊，干嘛的啊？但是阿兵哥他是必须要吃饭的嘛，对不对？但每个人都会要吃饭，可是因为疫情的关系，真的是差很多。可能以前是9成，可能跌到后面只有2成。
She got through it with a lot of support from her community, and especially other Chinese spouses. In Taiwan, where relations with China are always a sensitive topic, they've formed close-knit communities, finding friendship in their outsider status.
大家好，我叫雅欣，来自福建龙岩。
你好，我是周一兰，我嫁过来金门18年了。
Like Chin, Zhou Yinan and Su Yaxin both own their own businesses in Kinmen, but the COVID pandemic meant that for 3 years, they couldn't see family or friends back home, just across the water in China's Fujian province.
那段时间，我的妈妈在开刀，我们没办法回去。对，然后妈妈的，因为家里的经济状况也不是说很好，也希望我们这一边可以稍微协助。我想到那一段，我还想哭。
因为大家都有亲人，而且更何况，其实很多本地台湾的或金门的都有很多远亲或近亲。如果真的斩断了，我觉得不可想象。
Earlier this year, Taiwan's government reopened the ferry link to China, but there's still only a few services every day, down from dozens before the pandemic. With tensions between Taiwan and China at their highest in decades, and with Taiwan set to choose its next president in 2024, these women are worried what the future might bring.
我们也很害怕两岸战争。你不要说不会，其实我们有某些从国外进来的消息，因为其实两岸的新闻对立面是不一样的。我们所接受到的一些信息是非常有限的。
他们每天都在那边聊得很火热，说哦要打起来了，打起来了，都每个人都叫我们回去。这种事情经常发生啊，可是我们在这边就很平静啊。
Kinmen today has a quiet and laid-back atmosphere, but there are reminders everywhere of its militarized Cold War past. Despite its geographical position keeping it in the front lines of cross-strait tensions, residents like Chin and her friends stand as proof that Chinese citizens can live in peace, side by side with Taiwanese. Karma Xu and Ed Moon in Kinmen for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, nearly 2/3 of all traffic deaths in Taiwan this year involved motorcycles. The government plans to adopt harder licensing exams. Stay tuned.
For more stories from Taiwan, around the world, and in front of a World War II era aircraft carrier, please download the TaiwanPlus app. It's bigger than it looks.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The 10 countries of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations have kicked off their first ever joint military drills. The bloc, also known as ASEAN, launched drills in Indonesia, where military officials say the non-combat exercises are a show of unity. ASEAN has previously conducted drills with other countries, including the United States. The drills follow rising tensions over competing claims in the South China Sea, which Beijing claims as its own territory. For more, TaiwanPlus reporter Louise Watt spoke to Dr. Benjamin He, assistant professor at the China program at S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies in Singapore.
Why are ASEAN nations holding their first ever joint military drills now?
This concern has been ongoing with regards to the regional security environment. I suppose some would say that is a sign to external players, maybe particularly China, which a number of ASEAN countries have got territorial disputes with, that ASEAN represents some kind of consolidated entity and it's willing to translate its talk about ASEAN unity into practice. From the looks of it, they will be involved in maritime patrols, medical evacuation, search and rescue, humanitarian assistance, and disaster relief. So I suppose this is what scholars we would consider sort of non-traditional areas of security, whereby it's not about fighting a war or trying to dissuade others from coming to the region. It's really more on how ASEAN views their own security needs, in this case, the non-traditional areas. And it's a sort of a stepping stone to demonstrate some kind of broader ASEAN solidarity and unity on the military front.
Are these drills aimed at China in any way?
All 10 countries involved, and some of these countries have very close ties with China, it's hard to make a case that it is aimed at China specifically. Of course, among the countries represented, there are countries with territorial disputes with China, and I wouldn't be surprised some of these countries perhaps utilizing these exercises as means of trying to generate greater ASEAN solidarity to express concerns about China's territorial ambitions.
That was Dr. Benjamin He from the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies talking to Louise Watt. NATO naval drills in the Baltic Sea are being overshadowed by Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine. That's according to the exercise's director. German Rear Admiral Stefan Heisch said the annual drills felt, quote, more realistic than before due to the conflict. The two-week exercise kicked off on September 9th and include 30 warships and 3,000 personnel from 14 NATO member countries. They're mostly taking place along the coasts of Estonia and Latvia, which border Russia. A larger collective defense exercise is expected to be held in Germany, Poland, and the Baltic states next year. India says it has expelled a senior Canadian diplomat in a growing row over the death of a Canadian Sikh community leader. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has said there is, quote, credible evidence India's government was behind the alleged assassination of Hardeep Singh Nijjar in Canada in June. New Delhi has rejected the accusations as absurd. The expulsion of the Canadian diplomat from India comes after Ottawa kicked out an official described as the head of Indian intelligence in Canada. Almost 2/3 of all traffic deaths in Taiwan this year involved motorcycle accidents. That's according to recent government statistics. Some say this is because motorcycle license tests are too simple and they are pushing for a more stringent vetting process. Bing Wang reports.
To stay within the lines. This is one part of the motorcycle license test.
People must also complete a written exam, then pass a road test on the course.
中间转弯的部分吧，因为来回转的话，自己紧张的话还会转来转去，很怕就是会脚踩地。
本来就会骑啊，对啊，蛮简单的。
But some are saying that tests like these are not doing enough to prepare motorcycle riders to safely use the roads, and the numbers seem to support this. According to the Transport Ministry, motorcycle accidents have topped the list of all vehicle accidents for the 5th consecutive year. In the first 6 months of 2023, there were 998 motorcycle fatalities in Taiwan, accounting for 64% of the 1,569 deaths caused by traffic accidents. The National Audit Office released a report that says the primary cause of this is a lack of safety awareness and other skills. This has led some to call for more rigorous testing for motorbike riders.
检验很粗糙，看说你有没有白头，可是白头要看什么东西？教了吗？有没有办法检验？重要的事情是我们上路需要多少的动作。
The Highway Bureau says it has made the exams harder for the last 5 years, lowering the pass rate from 60% to just under 50%. And another test is in the works.
我们在10月底之前也有做一些，你要有一个辨识答对的一个门槛，比如说5题，你要答对4题才可以往下预约。那假如一直都没有答对，你至少要看15题。我们在城市设计里面增加它危险感知的一个意识。
It's hoped that these new measures will lower motorcycle deaths, increase rider skills, and help keep both them and pedestrians safe on Taiwan's roads. Chris Ma and Bing Wong for TaiwanPlus.
A remastered documentary film is shining a spotlight on Taiwan's female industrial workers. It's a tribute to the working women of the 1960s, but the film is resonating with a modern audience. Yu Jing Huang has more.
Thousands of people rushing to an export processing zone in Kaohsiung. It's a busy, yet ordinary morning in the 1960s. This historical file is included in a documentary, The Lost Youth, Women and Industrial Work in Taiwan. The film was first released in 2008 and was digitally remastered this year to commemorate female workers' contributions to the country's economy. In the 60s and 70s, most factory workers in the zone were women, as many didn't have the option of pursuing an education at the time. Director Wan Qingke wants to make sure these women are recognized for their work, and at the same time, she wants to remind viewers of the universal value of labor rights.
就是在整个全球的一个现况里面，其实你还是都可以看得到。就是我们在看台湾的所谓的早期的加工区女工的故事，其实你也是在看很多不同国家的这些所谓的基层的女工她们的生命故事。
This year is the 50th anniversary of a boating accident. The accident is included in the film. 25 people died on the way to work when an overloaded boat capsized. All but one of the victims were women heading to the export processing zone. 5 decades later, the brother of one of the victims, Zhang Zhenchang, is still emotional when recalling the tragedy.
对家庭冲击足大，但是嘛，互大家有一个真好的审思反省的机会。希望政府会当搁大大来重视，搁会当有空间会当搁较好。
After viewing the film, Labor Minister Xi Mingchen agreed more improvements are needed. Progress has been made. Occupational safety laws were enacted after a chemical accident in 1972. But labor rights are still not equal in Taiwan.
我觉得在看过这部片以后，我思考的是，现在我们本国劳工的相对各方面都有提升，但是我觉得移工的部分，我觉得我们也应该多去思考，怎么样对他们有更好的照顾。
The country has come a long way in improving workplace safety, but labor rights violations still exist to this day. The documentary is not only a tribute to the past, but it's also a reminder that the fight for better labor rights will continue into the future. Klein Wang and Yu Jing Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's National Day is next month, and places around the country are getting ready to celebrate. TaiwanPlus reporter Jeremy Olivier went to the central city of Taichung to see the test run of its fireworks show.
Here in Taichung in central Taiwan, preparations are already underway for the annual National Day fireworks celebration event that will take place on October 10th. To get ready for that, the city is holding a 5-minute rehearsal of the fireworks display. That may seem like a brief period, but actually they're going to set off around 1,500 fireworks, and there's been a big crowd that's been gathering here, and this is just one spot around the city. People are coming to stake out a place to take photos and to enjoy this brief rehearsal just across the street from the park where it will be happening.
刚刚我在现场就是看的感觉，我觉得整个烟火这个仪式感非常的强烈，而且非常的绚烂哦。那我相信台中市民或者是其他外县市的市民来看了，应该会有满满的幸福感。
It's been an extremely hot summer in Taiwan. Now, as the season's coming to an end, people are really looking forward to the weather cooling down so they can go out to more outdoor events like this one. Of course, stay tuned to TaiwanPlus for more coverage of National Day celebration events from here and around the country. Eason Chen and Jeremy Olivier in Taichung for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Finally, we leave you with more images of Taichung's National Day fireworks test run. I'm Kavat. Take care. See you next time.